Hi, Shelley from Spin Cushions here, and this is my pattern Salton from my Siren's Atlas collection. I'm going to show you how to make this one. It's quite fun. I make these popcorn stitches in the lazy way, so there's no taking your hook out. So I'll show you that bit of fun. And these stitches are also a little bit fun, but nothing you can't do. Right, I'll be making mine in a single colour, but I'll let you know if you need to do anything different, changing colours at the end of each round. So I'm going to start with a magic circle, or you can start with chain 4 and join that chain 4 into a loop if you like. And the first round begins with chain 3 starting chain or a false stitch like I like to do. And our side, we get straight into sides and corners, is chain 1, 5 stitches, one, trebles UK, doubles US, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then chain 1. So our side is 1 stitch, 5 stitches, sorry, 1 chain, 5 stitches, 1 chain, and our corner is 1 stitch, chain 2, and 1 stitch. Now this round is going to be very ruffled, but we will straighten it out in the next one. So I'm going to go around and do those repeats, and I'll show you how to finish off this round. Okay, I've done all my repeats. As you can see, it's quite ruffly, and I haven't even pulled it tight yet. So I'll do that now. Pull my magic circle tight. I'll try not to twist things up. You can see it's very, very ruffled, and the circle won't pull tight all the way. Now, what we're going to do, oops, sorry, I should have done one more stitch before I did that. Okay, so the last instruction of the round after you've done your repeats is to do one more stitch. Okay, now if you're changing colours, chain 2 and join with a slip stitch to your next stitch. If you're not changing colours, pop a little scrap of yarn in if you're not used to my way of doing things, and that'll help us figure out where the corner is. And to finish off, we're going to chain 1, and we're going to join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US to our first stitch. So insert your hook into the stitch, loop to the front, yarn over through 2. So what that does is places us as if we're in the middle of a 2 chain space in the corner, and the next round will begin with an instruction to work over that joining stitch. So let's get on with the next round, where the magic happens and turns these floppy round into a nice straight one. So first off, we do a stitch over our joining stitch. So where that scrap of yarn is, just poke your hook. So a double crochet UK, single crochet US, and then we do one of those stitches in the next stitch. And this is where the magic happens. You poke your hook in that 1 chain space, and then out in the 1 chain space on the other side of those 5 stitches, and you just work a double crochet UK or single crochet US, and then we go popcorn stitch, magic. Then we do a stitch in the next stitch, and that is our side done. And now our corner is simply 1 stitch, chain 2, and 1 stitch. We do that 3 more times, and I'll come back and show you how to finish off. Okay, I'm just up to the last repeat. I just thought I'd show that to you again. So I've done my corner, so now I do a stitch in the next stitch. Then I poke my hook in the 1 chain space this side and out in the 1 chain space on the other side of the 5 stitches. So just that hole there. Yarn over, pull a loop through, yarn over through 2, and then I do a stitch in the next stitch, and that's my repeats done. I've got these nice little popcorns. Our next instruction is to do a stitch in the same place as our first stitches, which is where that stitch marker is. And again, if you're changing colours, chain 2, join with a slip stitch. If you're not changing colours, move that little stitch marker up, chain 1, and join with a stitch to that first stitch. There we go. That is round 2 done. Now round 3 is going to get all ruffly again. So the first instruction is to chain 3 starting chain or a false stitch, like I like to do. And then to do a treble UK WS over the joining stitch. So again, where that stitch marker is. Okay, now our side is we're going to do a stitch in the next stitch. We're going to chain 1 and we're going to do 5 stitches in this next stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to chain 1. We're going to do 2 stitches in the next stitch, which is the one that gathered the popcorn together. 1, 2. Then we're going to chain 1 and do 5 stitches in the next stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, chain 1 and 1 stitch in the next stitch. And that is our side. And as you can see, it's very curly, but as you know from this round, we'll pull that in on the next one. So that's our side done. Our corners in this round are simply in the 2 chain space, 2 stitches, trebles UKs, doubles US, chain 2 and 2 stitches. Right, so that's all there is to that one. I'll come back and show you how to finish this one off. Right, so my repeats are done. As you can see, it's crazy ruffled, but don't worry, it's all according to plan. Now our last instruction is to do 2 stitches in the same place as our first stitch, which is where that stitch marker is. 1, 2. If you're changing colours, chain 2, join with a slip stitch. If you're not changing colours, pop your little stitch marker in, chain 1 and join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US to our first stitch. Okay, and now the next round where the magic happens. We're going to do a double crochet UK, single crochet US over the joining stitch, which is where that stitch marker is. Then we're going to do same stitch in the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and again we're going to put our hook in the 1 chain space on this side of the 5 and out the 1 chain space on the other side, work a stitch. Then we're going to do a stitch in the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, and again in the 1 chain space on this side, out the 1 chain space on the other side, and a stitch, and then a stitch in the next 3 stitches. Oops. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Magic. Nice straight side with 2 lovely popcorns. Okay, our corner in this case is 1 stitch, chain 2, 1 stitch. When we do all of that, I'll come back and show you how to finish. So there we go. Ta-da! The magic has happened. Nice and straight with these lovely plump popcorns. So to finish off this round, we just need to do a stitch in the same place as our first stitch, which is where our stitch marker is. Again, if you're changing colours, chain 2, join with a slip stitch. If you're not, move your stitch marker, chain 1 and join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US to your first stitch. Okay, so going on to round 5, nice flat part. We're going to start with a chain 3 starting chain or a false stitch, as I like to do. Then we're going to do this little repeat twice. Chain 1, skip 1 stitch and a stitch in the next stitch. So that's once, chain 1, skip 1 stitch, stitch in the next stitch, and then we're going to do chain 1, skip 1, and then we're going to do a stitch in the next 2 stitches. So the 2 stitches in between the popcorn ones. 1, 2, oops, sorry. Then we're going to do chain 1, skip 1, and do this little repeat twice. Stitch in the next stitch, chain 1, skip 1, stitch in the next stitch, and finish with chain 1 and skip 1 stitch. So now we're up to the corner. So we're just having 2 stitches in the middle and chain 1, skip 1 along the sides. Our corner in this case is a treble UK WS, chain 2, oh sorry, chain 3, and another stitch. So there we go, that's our sides and corner. I'll come back and show you how to finish off. Okay, I've done all of my repeats. I just need to do a stitch in the same space as our first stitch, which is where the stitch marker is. And if you are changing colours, chain 3, join with a slip stitch to your first stitch. If you're not changing colours, I'm going to chain 1, I'll move that stitch marker. And this time we're going to join with a half treble UK or half double US to our first stitch. So what that's done is put us as if we're in the middle of our 3 chain space, ready to start our next round, which is round 6, and it starts with 2 stitches, 2 double crochets UK, single crochets US over the joining stitch. So where that stitch marker is, right there, we're doing 2 stitches, 1, 2. Then we're going to do this little repeat 3 times, a stitch in the next stitch and a stitch in the 1 chain space. So that's, whoops, beg your pardon, sorry. That's once, twice, 3 times. Now these 2 stitches we're going to do a double crochet UK together, sorry, DC2 together, UK terms, or SC2 together, US terms. So what that means is you insert your hook, pull a loop to the front, but don't finish the stitch, and then start the stitch again in the next stitch. Insert it, loop to the front, yarn over through 2. And then we go back this way and do the repeats the other side. So a stitch in a stitch and a stitch, sorry, in the 1 chain space and a stitch in the stitch. Do that 3 times. And do a stitch in that last stitch, and then our corner. Our corner is 2 stitches, 1, 2, chain 2, and 2 stitches. So basically a stitch in every stitch and space, except for these ones in the middle where you crochet them together. I'll work my way around and I'll show you what to do next. Okay, so my repeats are all done. I just need to do 2 stitches in the same place as our first stitch, which is where that stitch marker is. So 1, 2. If you're changing colours, chain 2, join with a slip stitch. If you're not, I'm going to chain 1, move that stitch marker if you're using one, and join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US to your first stitch. Okay, 3 more rounds to go. Alright, now first is chain 3 starting chain or false stitch. Then we're going to do a stitch in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2. Then we're going to chain 2. Whoops. It's 1, 2. Now next we're going to, this is UK terms, treble 5 together or double 5 together if you're US terms. So all that is we're going to start 5 stitches, but we're not going to finish any of them until we get to the last one. So yarn over, insert your hook, loop through, yarn over through 2 and stop there. And do that 4 more times. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, and now we yarn over and pull through all those loops on our hook. And that's our 5 treble 5 together, or DC 5 together. I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to do a stitch in the next 3 stitches. So that the second one should be in the one that you've crocheted together, those 2 together. Then we're going to chain 2, and we're going to stitch 5 together again. So begin 1, begin 2, begin 3, begin 4, begin 5. Yarn over, and I sort of pull my hook up. I'm pulling my work down with this hand and my hook up with this hand as I pull through all of those loops. Then I'm going to chain 2 and do a stitch in the next 2 stitches, which should be the last 2 of the side. And that is our side done. So our corner in this case is 1 stitch in the 2 chain space, chain 2, and 1 stitch. And that's that, our sides and corners. I'll finish off and show you how to complete this round. Alright, I've worked my way around. Now we just need to finish off this round by doing a stitch in the same place as our first stitch, which is where that stitch marker is. If you're changing colours, chain 2, join with a slip stitch. If you're not changing colours, chain 1, move that if you're using one, and join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US to our first stitch. Okay, 2 more rounds to go. Next round starts with a stitch over our joining stitch, double crochet UK, single crochet US. We're going to do a stitch in the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. We're going to do 2 in the 2 chain space, stitch in the next stitch, 2 in the 2 chain space, stitch in the next 3 stitches, two in the 2 chain space, 1 in the next stitch, 2 in the 2 chain space, oops, and a stitch in the next 3 stitches. So our sides are basically a stitch in every stitch and 2 stitches in every 2 chain space. Now corners are 1 stitch, chain 2, 1 stitch. So that's pretty easy. I'll work my way around and show you how to finish. Alright, not long to go now. I just need to do a stitch in the same space as our first stitch, which is where the stitch marker is. If you're changing colours, chain 2, join with a slip stitch. If you're not, chain 1. Move that if you're having one, and join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US to our first stitch. Okay, and the very last round is a double crochet round, which I'm sure you will be fine to do. So put your hook where the stitch marker is for our first stitch over the joining stitch, and then a stitch in every stitch along the side. The corners are 1 stitch, 2 chain, 1 stitch. So I will do all of that and come back and show you the very end. Rightio, I've been all the way around. So now all that we need to do is a stitch in the same place as our first stitch, which is where that stitch marker is. We can get rid of that now. And I'm going to chain 2 and join with a slip stitch to that first stitch. Snip it off. And there we have it, Salton. So for all its ruffledness at the start, it really is quite flat, but of course it will benefit from a little bit of blocking. So, as usual, in the Bendigo Woolen Mills cotton, it's ever so slightly larger. This has been blocked, this hasn't, than the Cascade Ultra Pima cotton. But if you need to change the size of this one, if it's a bit too big, leave off that last round. If it's a little bit too small, you can add another round or change that last round of stitches to half trebles UK or half doubles US. it's up to you. So there you go. There we have Salton from my Siren's Atlas collection. Make sure you check out spincushions.com for some more crochet fun. Thanks very much. See ya.